Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. Sarah mentioned my name is Mark Mejia. I work at the International Students and Scholars Office, also known as the ISSO. And yes, I'm here to talk to you all about some important immigration essentials as international students. Definitely wanted to begin by also congratulating all of you. I can say, GSAP is such a great school within Columbia. I've worked with the administrators there, the academic staff for a number of years now. And our goal today, and really sort of the mission of the ISSO, is to always just ensure you have the tools and the resources and the information you'll need to be successful here as international students. So let's go ahead and get started. I think, Sarah, I'm going to pass it back to you to sort of talk about this, and then we'll transition to how this connects to what Sarah had already mentioned, so the I-20 and the visa.
Sure, thanks, Mark. So as you think about enrolling and getting all of the information you need to make this really important decision, one thing that I wanted to mention was in order to start your I-20, you do need to confirm your enrollment by submitting the reply form and the non-refundable tuition deposit. And so that is the beginning of the enrollment process. And unfortunately, once that happens, it's not immediate. It will take about 7 business days for your uni to be generated, and a uni will look something like AB123 as listed on this slide. And we're not counting Saturdays and Sundays. So, for example, if you have received your uni by email on a Friday, it will take a couple of weeks to get to you. So just keep that in mind when you are thinking about the time constraints with this process. And once you receive your uni, you'll be able to activate it. The email will have instructions on how you activate your uni, and you will be able to access Compass at that time and start your I-20 and also apply for housing and submit your immunization documents and other student accounts, accessing other student accounts. So you're not able to do any of that until your uni is actually activated. So that's a really important step to remember. And now I'll take it back to Mark for the next step.
Thank you, Sarah. So now that we sort of know how to access that uni, we've Sarah spoke about this I-20. Let's get into this in more detail. So here we have kind of the agenda of what I'll be talking about moving forward. We're going to be talking about the I-20 application process. So that's a application process with us at the ISSO. We'll be talking about sort of the processing timeline as well for the I-20 and both the student visa. We have a section at the end with sort of frequently asked questions. So I'll get into that. And as Sarah mentioned, time for Q&A as well. Okay, so let's begin with this I-20 application process. So to begin the I-20 application process, sort of these steps here, you're going to be preparing supporting documents. So these are documents that we require at the ISSO in order to submit or to process your I-20. We use a system called Compass. This is the system that you'll need your uni to log into to submit your application. You'll receive an I-20 or what's called a DS 2019 if we have any students here that are potentially pursuing a J1 visa instead of the F1 visa. And then you will apply for your visa at a US consulate or embassy. Okay. One thing I wanted to mention actually before I get into this is when we think about the I-20 supporting documents that you'll need. You're going to be needing a copy of your admission letter. You will be needing a copy of the biographical page of your passport. You'll also be needing to show proof of funding for the first academic year of your program. So this can include things like personal bank statements. It can also include bank statements from your parents, loan approval letters, scholarships. We have a full list of the documents that we are able to accept on our website. Um, Keep in mind in regards to the bank statements and most of the other documents as well, you'll want to want to ensure that this is dated no more than 3 months in the past, and also that it has very clearly the available balance or funds. And if you are using or including in your application sponsor funding, so from your parents, for example, there is something called a sponsor certification form that we require, something that they'll need to fill out and sign. Okay, so visa processing timeline. After you have been admitted and you've confirmed your admission, you'll want to submit your application to us as soon as possible. We process our I-20s as quickly as we can. With a complete application, we aim to do this actually within 48 hours. But I want to also let you know if there's any sort of issues with your I-20, if we need additional funding, we will contact you directly. Okay, so it's not one of those situations where you have to have this perfect application for your I-20 when you submit it to us at the ISSO. If there's anything sort of missing or additional, like a translation, anything along those lines, we will contact you directly, let you know what's needed. Your application will stay pending with us until that sort of approval stage. When we think about the visa, so after you have your I-20 and you are applying for that visa at a consulate or embassy abroad, these processing times, they really can vary depending on your location. So applying as soon as possible for your I-20 then allows you to apply as soon as possible for your visa. Okay, so our recommendation here, apply as soon as possible so that way you can sort of get that ball rolling and kind of have the biggest window in regards to having both of these applications be approved, and just to best ensure that you can arrive for the start of your program. We can see here, there's a little note, if you already have an unexpired F1 visa, you can continue to use it. So we may have some students here that are transferring potentially from another program here in the US. So if you've already entered in F1 status and you already have an F1 visa and you've used that F1 visa at least once, you can continue to use it after transferring your I-20, your sort of F1 SEVIS record to Colombia. And I'm also going to say here as well, I know I'll be talking about a lot. Please know you can contact us, email us anytime. We have our contact information on the last slide, and we can see here a QR code. So I also want to mention, we have thousands of international students, and we have a website with multiple web pages. And these are fully curated for our international students, sort of step by step, how to, for example, apply for that I-20, and then how to apply for the visa as well. Okay, so now let's get into some frequently asked questions. These are sort of just common questions that we receive from our newly admitted students. Here is a common one. So we have, I'm still waiting for funding. When can I apply for my I-20? So as I sort of mentioned earlier, as students, international students, you need to present to us that you have sufficient funding in order for us at the ISSO to just compliantly issue this I-20. That being said, it is okay for an I-20 to be produced with the funding that you currently have. And if your funding changes at a later date, say after your first semester, that's okay. Just keep in mind when you're applying for that visa, you'll want to have that same funding because that funding will be sort of indicated on your I-20. Okay, so if you're sort of, for example, say, waiting for a potential scholarship that you may be using to fund your studies. However, your parents can also fund your studies if that scholarship doesn't go through. You can apply for your I-20 now with your family funding, receive your I-20, make your appointment with the US consulate or embassy, get that F1 visa, enter the US. And then if that scholarship goes through, fantastic. You can use that scholarship funding for your program. You don't have, the I-20 is not a contract in regards to where that funding comes from if it does adjust or change during your program. Okay, here is another one. I cannot find a visa appointment. Can the ISSO help? I will let you know, unfortunately, in regards to these visa appointments, the ISSO, GSAP, we don't have any sort of ability to influence or expedite that visa application process. I can tell you, thankfully, I would say probably most consulates or embassies, they do have a procedure in which it is possible to request an expedited visa appointment. Okay, so this process is something that you would do directly with that consulate or embassy. It is tied to when you're beginning your program. And certain embassies and consulates, they have their own criteria. One thing I'll say now, per my sort of experience across the board, that first step in regards to requesting an expedited appointment would be to first make that appointment. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Their instructions should be online, but usually that first step is to make an appointment and then request for that appointment to be moved to an earlier date. Here we have another question. I am a transfer student currently in the US. What are my steps to receive an I-20? So talking about our web pages on our website, we have a specific I-20 transfer page. Here's the QR code here. The process is very similar to say if you were abroad and you're not transferring your I-20. But if you are transferring your I-20 from another institution here in the US, it's possible to do that instead of departing the US, obtaining a brand new I-20, and then using that to enter. Okay, here we have another question. I'm having issues logging into Compass. What can I do? So Sarah mentioned this way of logging into Compass with the uni. Because this Compass system does have certain requirements, that would sort of be the way that I would recommend doing it. It's just following Sarah's sort of advice and using the uni. We have this as well, just as sort of an FYI. There is another way as well to log in using your PID, but both of these numbers come from your admissions office. Okay, so we have reached the end of sort of the pre-prepared information. I will be opening it up to Q&A for any sort of questions you may have. We can see here that we have two different email addresses. Because of the large volume we have at the ISSO, sort of have two teams that work within the ISSO to service our international students. So if you have any questions about the I-20 or DS 2019 visa application, you can see this email address here, newintlstudent@columbia.edu. If you have any sort of questions about employment, you can send those to isso@columbia.edu. And I will mention one thing as I'm sort of thinking about what we have talked about so far. If we do have any transfer students, you can, when you do transfer your record to Columbia, you still will be issued a Columbia I-20. So do keep that in mind. If you're transferring your record to Columbia, make sure that you reach that final step of still obtaining an I-20 from us. And with that, I think, Sarah, are you going to help me out with these questions? I can kind of look here as well.
Sure.
I see also a hand is raised, so I'll let you kind of decide how we want to proceed.
I don't see any questions in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I do see, oh wait, there's a couple that just popped up. Okay, so my program starts on May 27th. If I confirm my attendance at Columbia on April 15th, the deadline for enrollment confirmation, is there enough time for the visa processing?
Potentially, yes. Yes. Yeah, it's potentially possible. So again, there's certain things. As I've worked with ISSO, I've also worked with sort of the employment side. So things like applications with USCIS. There's going to be certain things in your control And those are things like when you submit applications to us. But there are certain things that are potentially out of your control, right? Like that US consulate or embassy, the country that you're living in, and how long it would potentially take. My sort of advice would be to just kind of focus as much as you can. I know it can be stressful, especially in these kind of tight timelines, but just focus on what you can, apply as early. You can also as well contact the consulate or embassy to try to get an estimated time frame to kind of project to see if it's possible. Get that I-20, make that appointment, see if it can be expedited. Yeah.
The next question is the F1 generally recommended? Is that
Oh, perfect. Thank you to whoever submitted this. I'm glad you did. We sort of saw earlier in this presentation, I mentioned the I-20, which is what is used, the ISSO document used to issue that F1 visa. We can see here, there's another document. It says I-20 or DS 2019. So there is another visa type. So we talked about the I-20 and the F1 visa. It's also potentially possible to obtain a DS 2019 from us at Columbia and then apply for a J1 visa. Okay, so we have I-20 F1, DS 2019 J1. Depending on your funding, it is potentially possible to be eligible for both the F1 and the J1. Okay, when it comes to the application to the ISSO, the reason we didn't speak to both is because that application for us is very, very similar. It's the same thing, admission letter, proof of funding, passport. So if you are potentially eligible for both, what that means is that you are receiving some kind of scholarship that is covering at least 51% of your program here at GSAP, here at Columbia. In general, we recommend F1, but this is very much an individual decision. On our applying for your I-20 or DS 2019 webpage, there is a chart that has all the information about the F. It also has all the information about the J. You can sort of compare and contrast that, kind of see which you prefer. I will mention one thing though, we sort of allow that choice to be made. However, if you are sponsored, if your sponsor initially requires you to apply for the J1, which is the case for some sponsors, we would not kind of override that in any sort of way. And you will need to apply for the DS 2019 and then obtain the J1 visa.
the next question I can actually take? Do I keep my uni Gmail account if I already have an account from the intro course or another school within Columbia? Yes, so it's a unique identifier. So if you've taken a class or done another program at GSAP or another school within Columbia, then you will be able to have the same uni. And the next question is about academic scholarship. Could you break down the compensation or scholarship reward? And I'll take that. So if you've received a GSAP scholarship, I would recommend making an appointment with financial aid at Arch at arch.columbia.edu to go over how your compensation works. And generally, it's distributed evenly within the semesters that you're attending. So if you're attending a 3-semester program, it would be distributed evenly. And actually, let's go to Elena, who has her hand up. Did you want to share your question?
Hi, thank you so much for giving me this chance. Yes, I also wrote my question in the chat, and I'd like to know for people that might have some delay for making sure they have a secure fund. How is there any problem or is there any support for people in situation like me? I think this is the question of others, a lot of students, that we might have a little delay for applying for visa or the process. Everything just you explained. Do you have my voice?
Yeah, I think we got it. So, if you're having difficulties with your visa, just keep us updated and we'll try to guide you along the way. There isn't a one answer fits all to this situation, so we will do the best we can with the issues that you're having. But definitely keep us updated along the way. There's no one protocol that we
Yes,
work through.
sure, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And I thought it might be helpful to also, can you see my screen with our website? Is that being shown?
Yes.
I saw a question pop in about sort of the visa application and can you walk me through this? So I just wanted to highlight this because when you do land on the ISSO webpage, we can see there's a lot of sort of different sections. So for students that have yet to arrive and enter, this is sort of the section that I would focus on, this getting started section, and then really either this page or this page. So applying for your I-20 or DS 2019, or applying for your transfer I-20, and then applying for your visa. So when we talk about the visa, for example, this whole page again is sort of curated for all our international students. We broke it up here into 6 different steps. I know one sort of point of anxiety can be the interview. So if we go here, we can see here talking about the interview, the documents to bring, sort of tips. This is a great page as well, 10 points to remember when applying. So we have all of this available to you. And again, we're also available to contact us via email, et cetera. So I wanted to share this as well, since it looks like we had the time to.
So that's it for our session. Please feel free to reach out to us. I included our email addresses in the chat. And this session was recorded and will be published on the same welcome page where you registered for the session. So all of the sessions, online sessions, will be recorded because we know that many students are not able to join us on campus. So, and you might also not be able to join us live during the sessions. And we want to make sure that you have all the information you need to make your decision. And we do hope you attend. Congratulations again on your admission. And I hope you all have a great day, night, afternoon, wherever you are.
Yes, thanks everyone. And if I could also say as well, thank you. I know this information is probably not as exciting as learning about the programs and the courses that you're taking. So thank you for your attention and kind of covering this immigration side, which maybe is not as exciting, but appreciate all of your time.
Thank you.